Two women stand at the top of women's pro wrestling. One plays the hero, the other plays the villain, and the fans eat up every second of their rivalry. But behind closed doors, behind the masks and the screaming crowds, these two bitter enemies share an apartment, a grocery list, and a secret that would blow up everything they've ever built.
Saeko's already packing up and heading out of the arena while the crowd's still buzzing, ducking through the hallway like she's dodging a warrant. She's Suda Saeko, the Wicked Witch of the West, Stardust Agency's most feared heel, and right now, all she wants is to get home before a certain someone finds her. But that certain someone is already right behind her, bouquet in hand, and a grin way too bright for someone who just wrestled under hot lights. Kyohoen Haruka, Butterfly Cat, the Good Witch of the North, and she's not letting Saeko slip away that easily. Haruka leans in close, teasing Saeko about leaving without greeting her fans, calling it a champion's luxury. There's a softness between them that doesn't match the characters they play, a warmth hidden behind the banter. Saeko brushes it off, suggests grabbing a drink sometime, but only after the Emerald Cup wraps up. Haruka's face lights up at even that tiny gesture, and you can already tell there's more going on here than a professional rivalry. In the ring, though, it's a completely different story. Saeko and Haruka are nose to nose, and the tension is thick enough to cut with a folding chair. Haruka calls out to Saeko by her ring name, slow and deliberate, like she's savoring the provocation. Saeko barely flinches, just meets her eyes with that quiet intensity that makes the crowd lean forward in their seats. And then things escalate the way they always do between these two. Loud, messy, and absolutely electric. Saeko barks that fans care about strength, not charm, but Haruka fires back without missing a beat. The crowd's eating it up, and a staffer nervously whispers that these two always put on the best matches when they're paired together. But here's the thing everyone notices, and nobody understands. Saeko's face is turning bright red, and it's definitely not from the exertion. The action spills out to the bigger stage, Korakuen Hall, the holy ground of Japanese pro wrestling, packed to the rafters for their showdown. Inside the ring, it's pure chaos from the opening bell, fists flying and bodies slamming with a sound that shakes the cheap seats. The narration pulls back to set the stage, drawing a line straight to the wonderful Wizard of Oz, because this rivalry isn't just personal, it's mythological. The story goes like this. A girl gets swept to the land of Oz by a tornado and just wants to go home. The Good Witch of the North guides her, protects her, points her toward the light. The Wicked Witch of the West does the opposite, obstructing, tormenting, trying to enslave her. Their feud tears the entire land apart, and it only ends one way, with the Wicked Witch's defeat. But that's just the surface-level story, the version the fans buy into. Because back home, away from the cameras and the roaring crowds, the truth looks nothing like the fairy tale. The moment Saeko walks through the door of their shared apartment, Haruka launches herself at her like a golden retriever who's been left alone too long. It's not a wrestling move. It's a full-body tackle of pure affection, complete with accusations of cheating and a laugh that fills the whole room. This is the real story. Two girls wearing masks, playing the roles they inherited from the two witches of Oz. In the ring, they're bitter enemies. At home, they're something else entirely. Something that would blow up everything if anyone ever found out. Haruka nuzzles into Saeko and tells her she smells nice, while Saeko pretends to be annoyed, but can't quite sell it to an audience of zero. Haruka's next demand is pure domestic chaos. She wants to go grocery shopping together, like a normal couple. Saeko shoots it down immediately, pulling up the shopping list as evidence of how mundane and risky the whole thing would be. Onions, carrots, chicken, curry roux. It reads like a dinner plan, not a covert operation, but that's exactly what it would become if fans spotted them side by side at the supermarket. The argument gets sharper, hitting that nerve that always sits between them. Saeko says her face is too well known to risk it, and Haruka doesn't buy it for a second. She goes straight for the jugular, accusing Saeko of being embarrassed to be seen with her, of not wanting to look lovey-dovey in public. Saeko's reaction is instant and furious. Not because it's true, but because it couldn't be further from the truth, and the fact that Haruka would even think that cuts deep. The doorbell saves them both from spiraling further. Saeko's phone starts buzzing. It's referee Taguchi calling, and the timing couldn't be worse or better. Meanwhile, a delivery shows up at their door, addressed to Kyohoen Haruka, and Saeko has to play it cool, while signing for a package that could be literally anything. She glances back at Haruka's phone call, and mutters that it's a call for Butterfly Cat, not for the girl she shares a bed with. Back inside, they've settled into their system. The fox sign, a hand gesture they invented together as a code to slip into their ring personas even at home. It's a boundary, a way to separate the real from the performance, even when the walls between those two things are paper thin. The package sits on the counter, and Saiko's curiosity is eating her alive. But she knows better than to open something addressed to Haruka's professional identity without permission. Haruka opens it anyway, right in front of her, and what's inside makes Saiko's jaw hit the floor. It's a ball gag, glossy black leather, metal buckle, the works. And Haruka holds it up with the casual confidence of someone presenting a new training tool. Saiko screams. Haruka shoves it toward her playfully, and for a brief, beautiful moment, neither of them knows what to do with themselves. Then the phone context fills in the picture, and suddenly the ball gag makes a twisted kind of sense. Taguchi explains that the Emerald Cup Grand Finale is next week, and Butterfly Cat has formally proposed a match setup where she puts a ball gag on Seiko's character. Seiko's eye twitches as the words land. This isn't a prank, it's a professional pitch, and her rival/girlfriend is dead serious about strapping that thing on her in front of thousands of screaming fans. Haruka hits Saiko with the full force of her smile, the kind that could end wars or start them, and says she thought it'd really get the crowd going. Saiko's resistance crumbles almost immediately, because deep down she knows Haruka's instincts for the crowd are almost never wrong. She sighs, mutters something about it being fine if it's for that kind of purpose, and just like that, they're in planning mode. The two of them get tactical about it, and this is where you see why they're the best in the business. Haruka suggests switching the belt system to Velcro, so it doesn't eat up match time with fiddly buckles, because nothing kills momentum like fumbling with a strap. Then she moves on to the ball itself. Can it be designed to break dramatically if bitten hard enough, giving the audience a cathartic moment without dragging out the removal? But then comes the question neither of them was ready for. Which one of them is going to be the one biting down on it? The room goes quiet as both of them picture it. Really picture it. Not as a wrestling spot, but as something else entirely. They stare at each other, the ball gag sitting between them like a grenade with the pin half pulled, and the air in the apartment shifts from professional to something much more complicated. Saiko's brain catches up before the rest of her does, and she absolutely loses it. She's screaming about how lewd the whole thing is, how it'll have nothing to do with pro wrestling anymore, waving her arms like she's trying to physically push the mental image away. Haruka, cool as ever, just tilts her head and points out that the lewdness is entirely a product of Saiko's own imagination, which, of course, only makes it worse. And that's the thing about these two. What the world sees is a bitter rivalry between the Good Witch and the Wicked Witch, two of the greatest matchmates in women's professional wrestling who can't stand each other. But behind closed doors, the truth is softer, messier, and infinitely more dangerous. The true nature of their relationship must never be known. For the sake of the storyline, for the sake of their careers, for the sake of everything they've built inside that ring. Night falls over their neighborhood, and the argument about the ball gag has clearly evolved into something else entirely, because Haruka's voice drifts through the window, suggesting they just go ahead and use that thing right now. Saiko's panicked shriek echoes across the rooftops. And somewhere in the distance, their pro wrestling continues in private tonight, the way it always does. The next morning, Haruka's already gone for joint practice, and all Saiko can think is she probably didn't even shower. And she hopes, quietly, desperately, that nothing happens today. But with these two, something always does. It's joint practice day, and the tension is already thick before anyone even throws a move. Everyone knows the two team leaders can't stand each other, or at least that's what everyone thinks they know. The younger members of both Royal Guardian and Queen's Beastas are walking on eggshells, bracing for the inevitable moment their seniors clash. What nobody realizes, what the little editor's note spells out for us, but not for them, is that these two women glaring daggers across the gym are secretly dating. Haruka strolls into Royal Guardian's practice room like she owns the place, and honestly, she kind of does. This gym holds memories for her that go way back. Saiko's team watches nervously as the Queen's Beastas leader shows up wearing her team shirt like a flag planted in enemy territory. Haruka plays it smooth, saying she's here to check if the opponents are up to snuff, while the Royal Guardian girls mutter about whether this is a morale-boosting visit or straight-up enemy reconnaissance. The chapter title drops, Double Star, and Saiko's already on the phone with Haruka, making a disgusted face that Haruka can somehow sense through the receiver. Haruka reminds her that Keisuke, her brother, will be there today, and that Saiko needs to learn to play nice with people she's stuck with. The crowd at the venue is massive, exactly what you'd expect from Japan's top pro wrestling promotion, and Saiko groans knowing she'll have to deal with more than just the match tonight. Sayeko arrives at the arena and immediately heads for the food stalls, ordering 2 servings of yakisoba, a frankfurter, and fries like she's fueling up for war. A vendor recognizes her face and asks if she's fighting tonight, and she waves it off. She's not on the card today, just here to spectate. She wanders through the crowd with her hat pulled low, moving through corridors toward what's about to become a very long evening. And then he appears. Kyohuen Keisuke, age 31, president and CEO of Stardust Pro Wrestling Promotion, sparkling like a shoujo manga protagonist who wandered into the wrong genre. He spots Saeko early and lights up, teasing her about showing up ahead of schedule, asking if she came hoping to chat with him. Saeko's internal reaction is pure venom, barely masked by a forced smirk, but Keisuke just laughs it off. After all, she hates him, right? The yakisoba becomes a battleground when Keisuke tries to mooch some off Saeko's plate, and she shuts him down cold. She hates street stall yakisoba, and she's eating every last bite herself out of pure spite. But behind the bickering, there's a question hanging in the air. How did joint training go, and how's his sister Haruka shaping up? The whole concept of Saeko's upcoming match is laid bare. A beautiful, delicate princess getting demolished by overwhelming power, and that's exactly what the audience wants to see. The arena erupts as the star makes her entrance, and the camera pulls back to show the full scale of the venue packed to capacity. Someone named Senri is getting screamed at by adoring fans, and a commentator notes that Akiba's popularity is absolutely insane. The energy in the building is electric, even before the bell. But the real spectacle hasn't started yet, because the heaviest fighter in the promotion, Akutagawa Shizuka, is already in the ring talking trash about the champion's belt hanging loose on the wrong woman. Shizuka doesn't mince words. She'll beat Senri senseless and rip the belt off herself, no ceremony required. She tells the crowd she can't even spare a moment for their cheering because her opponent doesn't deserve the luxury of being a champion. The heel energy is cranked to 11, and somewhere in the stands, Saeko is watching this unfold with the sharp eyes of someone who knows exactly what good villainy looks like. Back at the gym before all this, the real drama was already brewing during joint practice. Ranra's fixing the ring ropes with a wrench, noting the equipment's seen serious wear, and it hits her. This is the same gym Big Sis Saeko has been using since her boxing days. The punching bags hanging in the corner, the creaky ring posts. Every scuff on the mat tells a story about the woman who built her legend here long before she ever put on a wrestling mask. Haruka finds a photo of Saeko from her boxing era while cleaning up for the practice session, and she's absolutely starstruck all over again. 6 years as a professional boxer, an unmatched, undefeated record, so terrifying that people used her name to scare misbehaving kids. Haruka can barely contain herself, wiggling with excitement over how cool Saeko used to be. Saeko walks in, catches her swooning over the old photo, and the embarrassment is immediate and total. She'd taken it down, but clearly not far enough. Then the tabloid surfaces, a crumpled old headline screaming about the wicked witch poisoning her opponent to maintain her undefeated streak. Haruka holds it up with the kind of fascination that makes Saeko's stomach drop, because this is the scandal that nearly ended everything. The truth was darker and more twisted than the headline suggested. The opponent's own camp had staged the sabotage, slipping sleeping pills into a snack meant for Saeko, only for their own fighter to accidentally eat it instead. The story cuts deeper as we see Butterfly Cat in full costume, mask and all, extending her hand to Saeko with an offer that changed both their lives forever. Seiko's infamous reputation wasn't a liability. It was an asset to the pro wrestling world, and Haruka saw that when nobody else would. Before her innocence was even proven in the poisoning scandal, before anyone else would touch her, Haruka reached out and gave Saeko a place back in the ring as a heel. Saeko remembers it like it was yesterday. After being driven from boxing as the villain, Haruka gave her a home, a purpose, and a way to keep the gym the old lady left her. Standing in front of the celebration banner for their new promotion, Saeko made herself a promise. For Haruka's sake, she'd become the world's greatest heel. The word product value used to make her blood boil, but Haruka turned it into something she could own, something that actually meant power. Practice finally gets underway, and it goes about as well as everyone feared. Saeko catches one of the juniors botching a move during a sparring exchange, and the slap that follows echoes through the entire gym. She tears into the girl without mercy, calling her a rookie, demanding she shift her weight properly so the person taking the move can actually rotate safely. It's brutal, it's blunt, and it's the kind of coaching that leaves bruises on egos and marks on skin. But then, Haruka steps in with the cool confidence of someone who's watched Saeko do this 100 times, asking the junior if she's okay before turning to Saeko and laying down the law. She apologizes for the rough technique, tells the Queen's Beastas girls to protect their own bodies and never rely on the attacker's skill alone. Then she drops the real threat with a smile. For next week's actual match, she'll use gentler moves, but if Saeko can't handle that, Haruka will be the one taking the belt and the title. The two of them lock up in a practice exchange that's supposed to be casual, but immediately turns into something more, the way it always does between these two. Someone watching from the side gulps nervously, sensing the charge in the air even without understanding it. When they look at these two going at it, move for move, grip for grip, they can't help but think that maybe, just maybe, these rivals might actually get along pretty well underneath all the hostility. The sparring escalates into a full-on throw that shakes the practice ring, and the watching wrestlers lose their minds. Haruka demands one more round before anyone can stop her, and Saeko's never been the type to back down from that kind of challenge. The juniors scatter like startled cats, while the veterans just sigh and wonder, for the 1000th time, why those two are on such bad terms. So naturally, they turn to the people who've known them longest for answers. The origin story comes out in fragments, delivered via an impromptu puppet show from one of the seniors. Back when Haruka and Saeko were both trainees living in the same dorm, Haruka lent Saeko an elegant all-black dress for a party, custom-made, tailored perfectly to Haruka's body. On Saeko, it was a disaster of fit, and the result was apparently so catastrophic that the grudge, or what everyone believes is a grudge, was born right there, with Saeko storming off looking like a furious witch in an ill-fitting gown. The girls eat up the story, debating whether it's true or just creative fiction, while other theories pile up. A big eating contest from their supposed ladies' gang days, and who knows what else. Saeko cuts through the gossip with a smack to the storyteller's head, insisting it's not a lie but creative fantasy, which honestly just makes it worse. The truth about why these two really can't be apart stays buried exactly where it needs to be, hidden under layers of tall tales and wild rumors. The chapter ends where it always does, with Saeko and Haruka tumbling down the stairs outside the gym in a full wrestling scramble that has nothing to do with practice and everything to do with each other. A panicked junior screams asking if they're okay, but neither one of them is listening. They're too busy grappling, too busy being exactly what they are when nobody's paying the right kind of attention. Their wrestling never slacks off, even outside the ring, and next week's Emerald Cup finale is going to prove that in front of the whole world. The scene shifts to Butterfly Cat in full ring gear, standing outside the gym with reporters swarming her for a pre-match interview. She's just beaten Lindsay, and the Emerald Cup finale against Seiko Suda is only 3 days away. The press wants to know what she's thinking, what she's planning, how she's feeling. Behind the mask and the glasses and the heart-shaped headpiece, Haruka is all business, giving the cameras exactly what they need while keeping what really matters locked behind her eyes. Butterfly Cat doesn't hold back on the mic. She calls Saiko's championship belt the equivalent of the Wicked Witch's golden cap, a borrowed power that was never truly her own. Without it, Saeko is nothing but a paper champion, all flash and no magic, and Butterfly Cat is going to rip it away and reveal the real brilliance of Stardust. The cameras eat it up, the reporters scribble furiously, and somewhere watching from the shadows, Seiko's jaw tightens because she knows every single word of this promo was rehearsed between the two of them on the couch last night. Keisuke watches from the crowd as the press conference wraps, and his mind drifts back to how all of this started. Back when Haruka's physical abilities were truly remarkable, but she had no rival worthy of the stage. Then the news broke like a thunderbolt. The expulsion of undefeated boxer Seiko Suda from the industry over the poison apple incident. Keisuke saw what everyone else missed. A woman with the athleticism to match Butterfly Cat blow for blow, and a villain persona the public had already written for her. Seiko was, in Keisuke's own words, the perfect hand, the ideal card to play in building Stardust's future. But star power isn't something you can manufacture through effort alone, and sadly, Butterfly Cat didn't have it back then, not the kind that fills arenas and sells out shows. He was the one who dropped the axe, the one who made the cold calculation that before being Haruka's brother, he's the president of the company, and the promotion needs what it needs. The bigger a star is, the more it pulls everything around it into orbit, and if Saeko approached Butterfly Cat as she was back then, she'd be swallowed up, reduced to nothing but a shadow cast by someone else's light. Keisuke lays it out with the clinical clarity of a man who runs a business built on bodies and stories. Win against that giant star, or don't bother stepping into the ring at all. Saeko fires back. You start your own promotion, and you're not even aiming for the top. And the challenge lands exactly where Keisuke wanted it to. He gives her the framework that would define both their careers. If Butterfly Cat is the supreme star Polaris, then Sayeko must become Sirius, a double star shining as one. Only when she burns with equal or greater brilliance can the real fight begin, the kind that sells out arenas and makes legends. Haruka was already aiming to become a Polaris herself, a star that could shine alone, but the genius of Keisuke's plan was that neither of them would have to. Together, they'd be brighter than either could manage apart. Sayeko asks the question that cuts through all the star metaphors. How can we actually win? And Keisuke's answer reframes everything. In a pure martial arts fight, Sayeko would probably take it, but in a pro wrestling ring, Butterfly Cat is the one who steals the show because this isn't just about fighting, it's about performing. The momentum is building even though they're still a small up-and-coming promotion, and the match he's envisioning would be the one that puts Stardust on the map for good. Back at the arena, the main event is already underway, and the undisputed champion Akiba Senri has come out swinging from the opening bell. The crowd erupts into her personal cheering song, rhythmic, thunderous, like a soccer stadium chant that shakes the rafters. And even Keisuke is clapping along with genuine awe on his face. Seiko watches from the stands with narrowed eyes, studying every movement, every pop from the crowd, cataloging it all for the war that's coming in 3 days. Senri's opponent, Akutagawa Shizuka, charges first, and the commentators lose their minds. Can Senri handle the heaviest hitter in the promotion? The answer comes in a smooth counter that rides the momentum perfectly, and Saiko's grip tightens on the armrest because she recognizes that level of ring awareness, that ability to turn someone else's power against them. This is the kind of wrestler Butterfly Cat needs to become, the kind that makes a packed arena hold its breath, and Saiko's the one who has to bring it out of her. Senri takes a devastating hit that sends her crashing to the mat, and the sequence plays out in brutal slow motion. The impact, the bounce, the struggle to rise. Someone in the crowd screams her name while Seiko whispers it under her breath, reading the match like a boxer reads a fight, counting the beats between the fall and the recovery. She mutters to herself that if Senri's a paper champion, then sure, she'll play that game, because the best paper champions are the ones who prove everyone wrong when it counts. The match at the arena becomes a mirror for the real story unfolding between Saiko and Haruka. Butterfly Cat bounces back into the ring holding the custom-made ball gag from earlier chapters, proudly declaring it Q-chan's masterpiece, ready for the finale. Saeko's face goes pale as she realizes they're actually going through with it, and Haruka's grin behind that mask is equal parts professional confidence and personal mischief. Keisuke calls Haruka over before she can push the bit any further, and Q-chan, Stardust's eccentric merch developer who runs the pro wrestling shop Munchkin, is already signing autograph cards in the background, like this is all perfectly normal. The signing event at Q-chan's shop is where the public narrative gets its final polish before the big match. Saiko and Butterfly Cat side by side, playing the rivalry for the fans, while being close enough to smell each other's shampoo. Keisuke orchestrated the whole thing, and Saiko can barely keep her heel persona intact when Haruka's sitting right there radiating warmth like a space heater shaped like a person. A bystander asks if this is all an angle, and honestly, the line between real and scripted has never been thinner. Butterfly Cat goes full villain mode for the cameras, grabbing the belt off the table and declaring that Saiko is a pathetic waste of space. The belt, the blood she spilled, every drop of it belongs to Butterfly Cat now. She tells Saiko to stop showing her tail and start showing her claws. And if she does that, maybe, just maybe, she'll let her play with her toy. The crowd loses it. The reporters are scribbling at twice the speed. And behind the mask, Haruka's eyes are burning with a fire that isn't entirely for show. Saiko watches the promo from behind, and something flutters in front of her face. A piece of paper, a note, something that catches her off guard mid-thought. Whatever it says makes her stop cold, because this isn't part of the script. This isn't part of the angle. Haruka tries to play it off as purely a declaration of war, but Saiko sees right through it. She'd been sniffed earlier and didn't even get mad about it, which means Haruka was planning this moment of vulnerability all along. The night sky opens up over their apartment as Saiko storms home, heart pounding so loud the sound effects practically spell it out. Ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. A bystander who caught a glimpse of the exchange outside the shop murmurs to themselves that they're pretty sure that was Suda-san, the Wicked Witch of the West, looking like a woman who just had her world tilted sideways. Saiko bursts through the door yelling that she's home, and Haruka slams into her with a full-body welcome that nearly takes them both through the wall. Back in the quiet after the chaos, Saiko and Haruka sit together in the wreckage of their evening, and Saiko says something that makes time stop. She declares herself the Wicked Witch of the West, the woman who'll outshine Haruka someday. And it comes out like a battle cry and a love confession at the same time. Haruka blinks, processes the word outshine, and for once in her life doesn't have a comeback ready. Just a stunned silence that speaks louder than any promo she's ever cut. Keisuke finds Saiko later, somewhere between the arena and the afterglow, and the conversation turns to something deeper than belts and bookings. He reminds her that the masks they wear aren't meant to hide their true feelings. They're meant to deceive the audience, to serve the story. But the only miscalculation in his entire grand plan, the one variable he never accounted for, was that the two women he'd cast as eternal rivals would fall in love with each other. His worry as a brother isn't about the relationship itself. It's about what happens when the roles consume the people playing them. If they get dragged too deep into being the good witch and the wicked witch, they might end up truly hating each other, and the masks that were supposed to be tools become cages. Saeko listens without interrupting, and the weight of what he's saying settles over her like the quiet before a main event bell. But Saeko's answer is the kind that puts every worry to rest, and lights every fear on fire at the same time. More than the world, more than even herself, Haruka is all that matters to her. And as long as the roots of their hearts stay planted in the same place, they'll be okay. Haruka says it back without hesitation. Never, in a million years, would that change. The Emerald Cup finale is days away. The ball gag is ready, the promos have been cut, and two women who love each other more than anything are about to try to destroy each other in front of thousands of screaming fans. And somewhere in the wings, Akutagawa Shizuka is still throwing punches, Senri is still fighting back to her feet, and the machinery of professional wrestling keeps grinding forward. Because in this world, love and war aren't opposites, they're dance partners, and the music is about to get very, very loud. Q-chan wastes no time weaponizing Saeko's visit to the shop, smashing a plaster cast against her face to take an imprint before she can even react. It's for product development, apparently, and Saeko's sputtering protests are met with a cheerful thank you and zero remorse. Saeko asks where Haruka is, and the answer she gets, that she went to the bathroom for a number 2, is exactly the kind of useless information that makes her wonder why she bothers talking to anyone in this promotion. But Q-chan reads the room better than anyone expects, cutting through the comedy to ask what's really going on behind that sour expression. Saeko spills it without meaning to. She ran into Keisuke the other day, and he said something that's been eating at her ever since. The president's warning echoes in her head. If you keep playing the role of someone with a grudge, sooner or later that hatred becomes real. Q-chan doesn't flinch, just asks the question nobody else has the guts to put into words. You have something you feel guilty about regarding Haruka, don't you? Saeko snaps that it's none of her business, but they both know the wall she's putting up is made of paper. Q-chan pushes further, not unkindly, pointing out that Saeko hasn't lived her life so humbly that she gets to mope about her own problems in silence. She's heard stories about actors who played enemies and ended up hating each other for real, and the parallel to Saeko and Haruka isn't subtle. But Saeko corrects her. It wasn't Keisuke who said that. It was Saeko herself, because even today, when Haruka signaled her to go for one more hit with a folding chair, she dropped it instead of swinging. The confession lands like a body slam. Saeko admits she held back, and that's the terrifying part. Once she's made up her mind, she can swing her fist without hesitation. That's never been the problem. But she's starting to worry that the day will come when she can't even raise that fist in the first place, when the love she feels for Haruka will bleed through the mask and freeze her arm mid-swing, and on that day, everything they've built together falls apart. Haruka appears behind her like she materialized from thin air, clutching the first-generation butterfly cat mask display piece, and tells Saeko to stop the bleeding. Wait, what bleeding? Saeko's punched the wall at some point during her crisis of conscience, and her knuckles are split open without her even noticing. Haruka doesn't scold her, doesn't panic. She just tells Saeko she doesn't need to worry about her, that they can't make it to the top if they're busy protecting each other's feelings instead of cracking skulls. Saeko fires back with everything she's got, screaming through tears that if Haruka wants to be the strongest, then she'd better be willing to crack a skull or two, and Q-chan watches from the corner looking genuinely terrified for the first time all chapter. The ball gag clatters to the floor between them as Saeko grabs Haruka by the collar, and for a single breathless moment, it looks like the roles have consumed them completely. Like the Wicked Witch and the Good Witch are about to destroy each other right here in a merch shop. But then, Haruka just goes, "Humph!" and Saeko blinks, and the tension cracks like glass. Backstage at the arena, it's almost time. Keisuke calls out to them, and the staff freezes as Saeko and Haruka walk in side by side, both covered in blood. bickering about who gets to walk in front. The younger wrestlers panic, asking if they've been fighting again, and the answer is so much more complicated than anyone in that hallway could possibly understand. Sayako growls at Haruka about her short legs making her slow off the mark, and Haruka fires back asking why Sayako's walking ahead of her. It's petty, it's stupid, and it's exactly how two people who love each other too much act when they're about to go to war. Haruka breaks first, letting out a pfft that turns into a full-body laugh, and Sayako mirrors it. They're both bleeding, both exhausted, and both absolutely losing it at each other's faces in the middle of what should be the most serious moment of their careers. Keisuke sighs, asks if they're going to go out to the ring looking like that, and neither of them cares because this, the blood, the laughter, the madness, this is how you get the crowd going. Everything they're doing right now, every bruise and every insult and every stolen glance that nobody else catches, is one big angle, a performance that won't end until the world acknowledges them. Haruka screams that they're the strongest, Sayako screams that they're super tough, and their faces are pressed together like two stars about to collide, burning brighter than either of them could alone. Polaris and Sirius, the Good Witch and the Wicked Witch, two women wearing masks they built together. And the Emerald Cup finale is about to prove to every single person watching that the greatest love story in professional wrestling is the one nobody's allowed to know about.